I wondered actually, the two presentations so far have got my mind whirring, and I wondered if there might be any conversation amongst the panellists at this point, or any response. I've certainly got some thoughts.
Jonathan, the modernity issue is quite nice. Jonathan said, you should find something funny to say. And I thought a lot, and I couldn't think of anything funny about Monet. But just, he does seem very distant from us in many ways, but it's worth remembering that he was one of the very early individuals to buy a car. And there's wonderful photographs of him zapping around the Giverny countryside in the 1890s. He and the family would pile into two cars and go off and see car races. And then I was reading a letter once when he was in Norway, and I've never heard anybody mention this. He said he telephoned France. I didn't know that people would do that in the 1890s, but there you are. And also, they'd pile into the car. One time they got into the car because they had an argument at home about a tarte tatin, which is an upside-down apple tart. And there was an argument about whether you turn it up this way or that way. So they got in a car and went right to the coast to find the tatin aunts to find out what from the horse's mouth. And so the other thing which I thought was lovely, he and his wife, who was a very genteel lady, would go to Paris and watch Japanese wrestlers. So he was absolutely embedded in the life of his time, although he was at Giverny, this kind of idyllic paradise. He was, so the money was, I do have an anecdote about money. In the olden days when I had secretaries, I had a secretary, and when one dictated before you went on to computers, and I hadn't realised, it took me quite a long time to realise that every time I said Monet, she wrote down money. And I'm not joking. And somebody pointed this out, it got a rather puzzling letter about money. And it was extremely embarrassing.
Well, I think we've had a similar experience here where our marketing people were scandalised because somebody wrote to us. And consistently all the way through the message was money this and money that, and they regarded this as the height of ignorance and all the rest of it, And I thought there's a very simple explanation to this, because if anybody has an automatic spell check, you have to watch very carefully, and I've been caught by it.
Well, I wrote down, you gave me the topic, does Monet still matter? I wrote down, does money still matter?
Well, no.
Something that both Julie and Terence said struck a chord with me. Terence going into the exhibition in Sydney every day, and I'm doing that here. But I'm doing two things when I go into the exhibition each day. One is I'm looking at Monet and I'm discovering new things, and I've actually found just in the last couple of days some things about the Rouen Cathedral painting that perplex me. The light in the porches, I just can't figure out what that golden glow is there, and yet I am prepared to accept that that is what Monet saw and felt, but what is it? So other people may not be so struck by this, but I am. But the other thing I'm doing is I'm watching the audience, and I'm watching the way they respond. And you're right, Terence. People are becoming surprisingly emotional about these things. First of all, there's the astonishment that we're looking at these things and they're in New Zealand. People can't believe it. And I'm often asked by my colleagues from other museums, how did Te Papa manage to land this one? But somebody told me yesterday that she became very tearful just looking at the paintings, just the sheer beauty of them. And so I imagine 140,000, 150,000 will come to the exhibition in Wellington, and every experience will be an individual experience. But for many people, it's surprisingly emotional, and that feeling is very profound. Emilie, would you like to kick off now?
Yeah, I have a very different experience of Monet than most New Zealanders, because as a child we moved to Paris when I was 11, and on rainy Saturday afternoons my parents took us to museums and art gallery, and if I had been naughty I was punished, and we were going to the Musée National de la Marine, looking at boat models and miniatures. But when I had been nice, we were going to the Musée d'Orsay to play my favorite game, Guess Who the Painter Is? And then we were heading for a hot chocolate, and before we go home, we always went to the Orangerie to sit down among Monet's water lily. And there with my brothers, we were exploring the textures, the color, wondering why Monet had no docks on his ponds, and how long it would take for water lilies to grow in the bathtub at home. But we never found out any answers to those questions. So to me, Monet is an old friend that we go and see on rainy afternoons, and is forever associated with the taste of hot chocolate, which is important bad. So it's evident to me that Monet has something to say to the present generation about beauty and perception, about vision and dream, and as such I believe Monet will always be relevant. But the main issue is to find a form, a medium, that appeals to the younger generation. So maybe the solution is a 3D virtual tour of the Orangery, maybe financing school trips for children and young adults to go and actually see the works with their own eyes. But you see, I'm not sure we need another book on Monet right now. I think right now we just might really need someone to update and correct Wikipedia first. Because tragically, it's often the first source of information that my students go and check. Maybe then, once they have experienced Monet and found reliable information on Wikipedia, they might just want to go to the library and read more books. And then we can resume writing books about Monet. But should we worry? I googled Monet and I found 17,800,000 entries for Monet. Matisse only gets 7 million, so he's 10 million ahead of Matisse. So there are web museums, virtual exhibitions of his work, Monet games, prints and videos, including Monet's Palette, a movie on the culinary tour of Monet's beloved Normandy. There are Monet furnished apartment, Monet bed and breakfast, Monet cafe, Monet cruises. There is Monet the English artist, Monet the singer, Monet the photographer, Monet the erotic romance writer, Monet the visual effects software, and Monet the mobile networks. I even found Monet jewelry and Monet car wheels, as well as a little town in Quebec called Monet, which apparently has great fishing and hunting. But still, it's mostly my old friend Monet that those pages are about. Some may be clumsy, some may be wrong, some may have terrible reproductions, some may have illegal images, but they are there, and they show that there is a healthy interest in Monet. Do you know that there's even a Facebook page called Claude Oscar Monet, and apparently he has no friends. So when I'm off to France for a sabbatical next semester, I already know what my daughter and I will do on rainy Saturday afternoons.
I think Monet regretted that so many of his paintings went to America, and I think that's a very fascinating part of art history, about the role actually of Americans in the development of modern art history. You know, you think about the central place of Les Demoiselles d'Avignon, for example. But I wondered how you, as a French national, feel about all of those Monets in American museums, where Monet himself regretted his fellow country.
Well, I think we were too silly not to buy them. We were too silly enough not to buy them. Just as we were too silly not to give Picasso French nationality. Well, too bad for us. And I actually think that Monet was not the only one in that position. Rosa Bonheur had exactly the same problem. All of her artwork was going off to America and to England, and we still have a lot. I mean,